Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Pedro Miranda. I'm part of the Solana Foundation's creator economy team, focusing on creators, Web3 social, and consumer applications. We have a really exciting panel, especially in light of compressed NFTs and everything that's happening on Solana. I think it's extremely timely to discuss consumer expectations on Solana with regards to applications, developers, users, and future consumer bases. So if our panelists could give an introduction in terms of who they are, what they're working on, and we can get this panel started.
All right. Hey, guys. I'm Ilya. I'm with Tensor. I'm actually curious, how many people have used Tensor? Show of hands. Let's fucking go. That's crazy. Holy shit. No way. Guys, biggest fan of all of you. Thank you for being a customer. But yeah, for those of you who never heard of Tensor, we're a degen NFT marketplace on Solana. We've done over $150 million in volume. And yeah, I guess we're just like really excited about pushing forward NFTs on Solana. We've been the first to build compressed NFT marketplace. We've also been the first to build a compressed NFT launchpad. And we've done Tensorians, which is our own collection, compressed. And yeah, a bunch of interesting stuff. But yeah, so that's Tensor. Awesome to meet everybody.
Amazing. My name is Chris Fiore. I head up growth for Step Finance, one of the OG applications for Solana. If you're looking to have a portfolio dashboard and track everything that's happening in DeFi as well as NFTs, you can do that there. We also have several other things, such as Solana All-Stars, which is Solana's ambassador program, where we do meetups every single month. 1,000+ people come out from all over the world. And we also launched the first on Solana conference outside of Breakpoint, which is Solana Crossroads. So, yeah.
Amazing. I'm Arnold, CEO and co-founder of Sphere. We're an end-to-end payments API for digital currencies, meaning that we do on-ramp, multi-chain fiat payments and off-ramp, starting on Solana, but now on a couple different networks.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction, guys. So we have a really eclectic range of use cases and projects here, NFT marketplace, portfolio dashboard, payments API. What is the state of the crypto consumer today? Let's do what is the strength of our union today from your perspective?
So what it is today versus what I think it should be over time and should be. Actually, that's what I want to discuss, is where I think we're going directionally, right? So right now, I think the state of the crypto consumer is somebody who is interested in the technology, maybe thinks they could make some money off of it, thinks it's a cool space directionally. They're a builder, potentially. I think that's where we are today. In the future, where I hope to be, is a place where crypto is a technology that allows people to have non-state money, right? I think that's super important. The philosophical principles of crypto, that's super important. And it's something that allows people to actually be unbanked in places where they don't have access to the financial security and systems of most Western countries. So directionally speaking, I also think that's where we onboard the next billion users, is in places that maybe aren't the US. Maybe it's somewhere like Nigeria or Turkey or Vietnam, somewhere like that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Do you want to go?
No, go ahead.
Nice. Yeah. So I guess first principles, crypto is a technology, and there are a lot of ancillary benefits that you get with blockchain. But I would wager that among those primary is the removal of trust, or perhaps more accurately, the reduction of trust. So you're able to cut down on the number of trusted intermediaries that could abuse their power or otherwise are necessary for experiences, whether it's financial or otherwise, that we typically take for granted to be true. And I feel like when you think about what is a 10x for the average person when you remove trust, it becomes an interesting question, because oftentimes trust is an edge case. Like, if you get deplatformed by an application, it's not obvious that trust is a problem for you as a consumer until it actually happens to you. That being said, there are areas of the world where this is not as infrequent the case, where the trust that is required to depend on even your local currency or your local government or the apps that you use, the information that you get, that is where blockchain can really kick in. And I think, I'm sure we'll get into the weeds of it, this is where there's the most exciting potential for this to be immediately applicable to consumers now, versus where I think historically we've thought about this deluge of users coming in after a key, application unlock, or after certain macro trends make it convenient for on the regulatory side or for convenience in the user experience. But yeah, that's I suppose the TLDR.
I think the FTX users might agree with you on trust.
Sorry?
FTX users might agree with you on trust.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think today, okay, there's like two ways that you can use crypto for consumer applications. There's what we would call crypto native apps, and then there's the crypto enabled apps. So in the first bucket, you have actually probably most of the applications that you guys know. It's like all the DeFi apps, it's like NFT marketplaces, the degen minting tools, all the stuff we have fun with. That's like the native stuff. And then you have like the enabled apps that, to be honest, like barely exist today. Like there's very few apps where the blockchains can abstract it away. And I don't think one bucket is better than the other. I think both have their place. And it almost takes like a slightly different founder to build a really large scale company in each of those buckets. Like for example, I think in the latter bucket of like crypto enabled apps, one of my favorite ones is Code by the founder of what used to be Kin. And I think like that app where they just completely abstract away the blockchain and just want to build like a seamless payments experience for like consumers worldwide. I think that's like a fantastic application. Yeah, and in the first bucket, we obviously like Tensor and then all the other ones. So I think that latter bucket is interesting because Solana is probably one of the only blockchains you can actually build an app like that on, which is so fast and so seamless and so cheap that it's completely abstracted away.
That's a really interesting point with regards to crypto-enabled applications. I think we sometimes focus too much on the crypto-native application in an echo chamber almost. And Chris said something interesting with regards to non-US and non-Western markets, where a lot of these crypto-enabled applications can be a killer 0-to-1 use case. So I'm curious, and maybe Chris, you could start off around how are you seeing the crypto consumer use cases in non-US and non-Western markets?
Look, so we run something called Solana All-Stars, which is Solana's ambassador program, and it's in real life meetups in Nigeria and Turkey right now. We're going to expand that to other geographies. So every single month, there's 1,000+ people that are coming to our meetups. And one thing that we've noticed there versus when we've tried to do meetups in other places is that people want to come. We don't have to even try to get people to come. People want to show up there because they want to learn how to better themselves financially and escape from their currency that is failing them. So whenever you're trying to onboard 1 billion people, is it better to go after people who you have to convince or people that are already coming to you looking for something that's better? And you just need to provide the educational tools, resources, et cetera, that they're asking for. So I guess the point there is look for geographies that are having problems financially with security of finances, things like that. Go after those regions and build products that are better than any solutions that are traditional that they have there. And you're going to have a lot of success organically without having to even do much marketing. You just need to make people aware, and they're going to want to be onboarded.
I'm curious, Arnold or Ilmoy, if you have any specific examples of different geographies with regards to Tensor or Sphere. What are you guys seeing with regards to different trends relative to American or Western users?
Yeah, so my co-founder is from the Caribbean/Guyana, and it's been surprising to see how much crypto adoption there is there. And it makes sense given that the sand dollar is basically a CDBC that has existed in the Bahamas, for example. But if you talk to locals there, Obviously, there is the use case of it as an investment vehicle, a way for them to get exposure to Western markets without needing to have, a U.S. brokerage account. But the other side of it is that there are really bad capital controls and local fiat volatility, which compels them to move their money into digital assets. Because, it reminds me of a story I heard from a friend from Indonesia, where he was just sitting managing his village's money. And over the course of a year, that amount of money in real dollar terms collapsed by like 20% from doing nothing. And so if the actual value of your treasury is just threatened existentially because of the fiat in which you hold it in, it becomes much more compelling to move it into alternatives and to bite the bullet of the crypto user experience that a lot of us are trying to solve today. And so I think whether it's in the Caribbean, parts of Latin America, Africa, parts of Southeast Asia, a lot of similar stories from Kenya, Nigeria, folks from Pakistan, Indonesia, of course. Whether it's one of the fiat volatility more so than the capital controls, it's a stark difference from what we see in the West, wherein I think there are other reasons that the consumer might want to buy into crypto, and I believe that the catalyst will be more along the lines of like ACH in the 70s, or credit cards in the 60s and 50s, in terms of that initial push. To Chris's point, what it takes for the average consumer outside of the US, or I'll call it the Western world, to see the value proposition in crypto is just a lot clearer, because they don't take it for granted, that there's a bank on every street, or that they will be as rich next year if they just hold the naira or the peso or whatever.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to say. People in the Western world see crypto as, hey, number go up, I make money, that's amazing. People in other parts of the world see it as, number go down on my money, how do I escape this currency?
Yeah, that's interesting framing. I think for us, like a pretty big eye-opening moment was when we launched our compressed NFT marketplace. And we work with a company called Drip on Solana that does these like compressed NFT drops to hundreds of thousands of wallets. And what was really interesting was that, number one, when we launched the compressed NFT marketplace, in something like the first 48 hours, it had more wallets and more transactions than our legacy marketplace within a month. So it was like some stupid number of people interacting with it. The other thing that was really interesting was the geolocation of those people. So if you look at Tensor today, 90% of our revenue comes from the West, but only about 30% of our wallets come from the West. 70% of our wallets come from developing countries in Asia. And I think that's really interesting because, again, for the first time ever, you almost see like a new cohort of users being onboarded onto crypto, onto all of this, using NFTs. Because like really, NFTs, they're kind of like the gateway drug. Like it's this little fun thing with a picture that somebody sent you and you're kind of playing with, and like maybe there's an artist you like. You come for the NFTs, you stay for DeFi. Like you stay for serious money related use cases. But NFTs is like the reason when you're like having beers with your mate, you're like telling them, hey, you should check it out. And I think compressed NFTs in particular are basically enabling that for the developing world. So we're pretty excited for that.
How are you viewing, can you tell us more about how are you viewing compressed NFTs as an onboarding use case at Tensor? Focusing on the new 70% of users that you all have on your platform?
Yeah, so I think basically the big thing that's happening right now is in NFTs, or at least in parts of that industry, is a shift in mindset from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance. Basically, if you look at the last 3 years, the meta of NFTs that really had product market fit was let's produce as few of these things as possible, get them into the hands of people with a lot of money, and those guys will create a lot of attention, a lot of excitement for our project, and yada, 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 yada. But if you actually think about that, that's a very non-scalable way of going about getting users, because by very definition, you're saying my project is only going to be available to the select few rich individuals. Compressed NFTs kind of flip it on its head, and again, I keep going back to Drip because I think Vibu is just doing like God's work here, where he's like actually thinking about how do we onboard 1 billion people onto this thing. And so what they're doing, for anybody who doesn't know, is they have a subscriber list. You go subscribe completely for free, and you get free airdrops from artists on Solana. And it's like new artists every time. And then like basically what happens is you get more and more airdrops. The more you use the product, the more rare the NFTs you get. And then you engage with artists in different ways. And I think that is just so much more scalable in terms of generating excitement for products and generating like people, just like people talking. Like it's all about getting people to talk about your product. And like that makes so much sense about how I could see like 1 million people in the world signing up to that list and talking about Drip, and then hopefully eventually Tensor, because we work with those guys very closely.
It's super interesting what you just said about shifting from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance. And I almost feel like that is a very strong answer to the question of what are we resetting consumer expectations to? And I feel as if from the consumer standpoint, we've been capped, we were talking about it backstage, in this 10K NFT PFP era, and the evolution of that to one of abundance enabled by Solana with amazing applications like GetCode, and enabled by amazing tech primitives such as compressed NFTs, right, unleashes an element of abundance with regards to resources and possibilities that we now have open. So I'm curious, Chris, obviously you're focused on the portfolio tracking side of things. If there are any insights that you could share with regards to how this shift is materializing and how you all are approaching that.
So I think crypto is always about abundance. We're just trying to onboard more people, right? And I think doing things such as compressed NFTs, which allow people to have more access, I think is critical, right? Access and distribution. You have to have those two things. So for us, part of it is distribution, right? And so with All Stars that I was just talking about with Crossroads, so Solana Crossroads, a conference that we do, it's about just getting more people in the door and educating those people. So if you want to distribute to more people, you need to educate those people, and then those people can go on and distribute to more people through education. So for us, we have the dashboard, right? We have our analytics product, which we're continuing to build out, both on the DeFi and the NFT side of the house. But for us, it's also, how do we educate more people? How do we distribute to more people? Because I think that's the key problem. There's a lot of great dApps within Solana, but how do we distribute to more people? And we need to solve more of those distribution problems.
Can I take the other side of that argument?
Go for it.
I actually think education doesn't scale. Like, I haven't seen one startup that scaled to billions of people through the means of education, because education is boring and nobody has time for that. The way you scale a startup to 1 billion people is you build a use case that is so exciting that people will jump through 7 hoops of fire to try it. And it's almost like the polar opposite. It has to be like janky, barely working, but it has to be new, and it has to be interesting. And I think what we need to be thinking about is what are the apps that are uniquely enabled by this technology, by Solana, by the things you can only do here that people will jump through 7 hoops of fire to try. And I think, like, again, Drip is probably one of those apps. I don't know if Tensor is, to be honest. I think we have a bit of work to do there. But like, yeah, I think like even POAPs maybe are, because like giving people, like it's just such a unique and novel experience. Like you go to an event, you get something bad, and that thing is worth something. Like I think that it doesn't matter how many clicks it's gonna take you on the wallet to get it. You're gonna go through that experience because it's worth it, because there's something at the end of it. So I think product market fit it trumps everything. You have to be thinking about applications that are new and unique, and those applications bring in users.
Okay, let me have a comeback to that. I would say the other take is, let's take Nigeria. If somebody wants to escape from Naira and get into US dollars, for example, do they care about it being something unique versus it just working and solving their problem? I would argue that they care about it working and solving their problem more than it being unique.
Right, but isn't that unique in itself if it works and there's no alternative?
I guess it depends how you define unique.
Well, there's no alternative, no?
I mean, I suppose.
I feel like these ideas are not necessarily mutually exclusive. I feel like there's a probability distribution for that killer app, that unique unlock that we get on the consumer side from crypto. And if we reason by analogy, it's probably going to happen. But if we look at the number of users that currently exist on chain, compared to think of a third tier Instagram clone, it is a little bit less obvious what it'll be, although we have some very promising signals, whether it's on the CNFT side, even on the meme coin side. I think about my friend from Kenya who got a 2K USD worth bonk airdrop, and that paid for a year's tuition of his college, life-changing money. And the entry point was so easy for him. It was a dog coin as a participant of the community. And I can imagine similar analogs, whether it's on the NFT side or whether it's on the stablecoin or digital currency broadly as a means of value transfer side. But if I were to offer a third opinion here, I feel like really what's required is likely going to be, if we look at history and the evolution of payment methods, in my opinion, something similar to the transition from physical check processing to ACH and direct deposit and electronic scanning, wherein, of course, there are obvious benefits to this technology. It's a 10x in many regards. Processing speed, operational cost, overhead, all this great stuff. But for the end user, what it takes is some sort of way to solve the chicken and egg problem that so many subverticals within blockchain face today, which is the users aren't here because there's no real place for them to be able to take their cryptocurrency and meaningfully spend it. And the merchants don't want to offer cryptocurrency as an option to buy things because none of their consumers actually want it. And if we look at the history of payment methods, the way that you get over that, for better or worse, is usually through something like regulatory intervention. ACH got adoption because the government drove social security benefits as a sort of incentive for banks to adopt this much better technology. Credit cards basically did an airdrop. Finding the right cities on the West Coast and just giving them out and signing on merchants from day one. So that would be my third hot take. If we separate these into the more obvious value transfer use cases that touch on the politics, the social dynamics of these regions, or the potential experiential unlocks that you get from unlocking an NFT or unlocking art or music or whatever it is on chain from doing something.
So 3 very different but similar perspectives in the sense that they're anchored around the consumer. So let's bring this back to the mindset of a tech-savvy consumer who might not be crypto native, has heard of Bonk, for example, and may or may not claim their airdrop. Where do you see the use cases for that particular person evolving? Is it on the CNFT side? You mentioned education. Arnold, you talked about regulatory intervention. Where do you see meaningful changes happening for the average tech-savvy consumer?
I think, so just to be clear, the average consumer doesn't give a shit whether it's CNFTs or PNFTs or whatever NFTs, or if it's even Solana or whatever. They just want to get stuff done, right? That's what they want. And I think the 2 areas that I personally think are most ripe for disruption are payments and creator enablement and creator revenue. I think on the payment side is basically a no-brainer. The fact that it's taking us this long to build a global, free, permissionless payments app is mind-blowing. I'm European, I live in Canada, and it takes me 20 fucking bucks to wire I don't know, $2 from Europe to Canada. It must be traveling in shipping containers. I don't know. It's just unbelievable, right? And so the only reason there isn't a global app that can do all of that for you is because there are too many players with too much at stake that don't want that to happen. And I really fucking hope you guys succeed, because I really don't want to pay like $20 for a wire from Europe to North America. And I think the second area that is also a no-brainer is creators. So it's painfully obvious to anybody spending time on the web that there's just this new emerging class of jobs and people all around creation and self-expression. YouTube, TikTok, articles, music, whatever you call it, people want to be creative. We all have that crave coming from inside of us. And so far, to date, very few people were able to pay their bills by being creative. And I think what's gonna happen in the next 20 years is that's gonna flip on its head, where most boring jobs are gonna be taken by robots, and most exciting jobs, like us being able to actually be creative, are gonna be done by us humans. And crypto will be a fundamental economic layer that enables those jobs. Like, you can laugh about NFT projects all you want and say like, yeah, they're rugs, you know, these guys didn't ship anything, whatever. But there are people who did ship, and there are people whose lives have been fundamentally transformed. I personally know artists, I might be even dating one of them, where they used to have to do other things and do art on the side, and now they can do art to pay their bills. And I think that is just huge. That is just amazingly huge. It'll change the world.
Look, I think the most important thing that crypto does is it's non-state money. It provides people access to a financial system that is potentially better than theirs in a lot of places in the world. So for me, educating those people that it can help, that's the most important thing we can do. And there's a lot of people in the world who can use crypto. They just don't understand how it operates, and it's not because they're not smart enough or anything like that. They have mobile phones, and they can use crypto. It's just a matter of educating those people on how to use crypto and what the benefits are. So for me, that's the #1 thing I'm focused on for the Solana ecosystem and crypto at large, is educating more people. That's how you onboard 1 billion people, if that's the goal.
Arnold?
Yeah, the question of evolution is so interesting. I can maybe draw on some ideas, thinking about the state of it as it's developed now. I feel like there are 3 categories for me. Like, why is this technology useful now? It's like, #1, it's some variation of like, you put money in, you get more money out. Like, you can add a lot of extra steps. You can add, you know, some very genius financial engineering. You can add art. You can add, you know, community, utility, whatever it looks like. But fundamentally, there's like a financial connection which compels you to use it. You buy a dog coin, you want to make more off of that dog coin, or maybe you just really like dogs. #2 would be like social, I'll call it like political, cultural arbitrage. I think this kind of touches what Chris was talking about. Does it make sense? Is it really a market thing that, you know, one country has a particular political relationship with another, and hence that destination country has disenfranchisement within the financial system? I think also kind of what Ilya was touching on with payments. I think this is where, you know, payments, DPIN, a lot of these solving human coordination for non-market reasons falls in. I think the third and probably most underaddressed, except maybe somewhat in the NFT side of crypto, is what Armani once told me is the soap opera, which is, you know, think about why we're all here. Like, in many ways, there would be no thing to connect all of us on Twitter, Discord, Telegram, across all these different social channels, except for the fact that crypto is this really good common domain, which is money, as well as the hope that this can reinvent the internet. I'll touch more on this on a blog post because I see that we're running out of time. But I think it is a very unique thing that has never happened before in human history, where you have millions of people around the world coming online at the exact same time without brand preferences, and have this very common thread that compels them to have reasons to talk to each other, to form friendships, with money being you know, the self-perpetuating common mechanism.
Arnold is correct. We are out of time. But if you want to chat with any of our panelists or myself, we'll be over there by the speakers lounge. Please give a hand to our lovely panelists. And thank you all for attending.